Okay, so Dirt Bristol. This is a race that I have been looking forward to a lot. Like a weekend I've been looking forward to, and it immediately started raining. Like as soon as the heat races for the Truck Series started on Saturday, it was raining so much that the windshields, the drivers couldn't see anything through the windshields because it was the because the cars were kicking up mud. They were filled with mud on the windshield, and they couldn't just wipe it out. So of course they had to suspend the race, postpone it to Sunday. It kept raining, postponed it to Monday. Monday was sunny, so they went racing. And immediately, especially in the Cup race, there were several concerns that started up. For example, the racing package, the tires, the visibility concerns, because towards the end of stage 2 in the Cup race, I believe, NASCAR had to put they had to add another layer of water because the track was so dry up in the sun that it was starting that the cars were starting to kick up dust. And there was even a point in time where NASCAR started using single file restarts, like towards the end of the race, towards the final 50 laps or so. Not really 50 laps, like final 100 laps, I believe, something like that. They started using single file restarts. Now, of course, personally for me, I prefer like the double file choose cone restarts more. I believe they're more dynamic. But single file restarts, I mean, I have a soft spot for them because I grew up watching them like in the 2000s. So it was a nice little throwback there. So overall, it was a decent race. It was a decent weekend. For not saying perfect, because of course, I was so hyped up for this event and for this event. And of course, a part of that was a part of why I feel like not satisfied, just satisfied, but not like hyped up for next season, is because of the some of that has to be because of the race was postponed to Monday. That's gonna take some of the hype out of you. But also because NASCAR, I wouldn't say that they dropped the ball, but they could have done some things better. There were moments where they were caught a little bit underprepared, for not saying totally underprepared. But they definitely could have done a few things better. It's pretty clear to me that they sometimes didn't know what they were doing. And that's to be expected. This is like the first race in whatever many years, since the 70s, I believe, that NASCAR races on dirt. And so of course you gotta kind of give it a pass for that. But of course, still there are a few of those angry fans who say, "Oh, dirt Bristol, these cars don't belong on dirt." Now, of course, they say that when they say that, they're not saying that NASCAR doesn't belong on dirt. I'm just saying that the cars of today, like the Gen 6 and the next Gen car, those cars, they're saying that those cars do not belong on dirt. Compared to the older generation of cars that started out, that were racing like in the grassroots dirt era of NASCAR. And to that I say, it's just the first race. Like, you're gonna judge how good Bristol is of just one race, of a one race sample size. One race isn't even a good enough sample size. You gotta wait until like 5 years to see if Dirt Bristol is actually like worth keeping on the schedule. I agree that they went off to a rough start and they could have done a few things better, but for the most part, the Fox broadcast, they announced that Dirt Bristol was gonna be back for next season. So of course, the race did something. It revitalized the spring race at Bristol, even with some of the concerns it had, even through all like the trials and tribulations that it had to do, like through all of the rough spots. That racetrack, despite all the bad things that happen, or all the questionable things that happen, for not saying bad, Dirt Bristol is going to be back for next year. So NASCAR obviously did something well. They revitalized interest in the spring Bristol race, in a race that was pretty much dead in the water. And of course, I understand why NASCAR did that. Some people didn't like it. Some people say that Bristol does not need dirt to run well, but hear me out. The spring race at Bristol be it because of weather or some other like underlying factor that happens, be it for weather or some underlying factor that happens, some other factor, it's Spring Bristol is always underselling compared to its night race counterpart. Spring Bristol is always, for some reason, uninteresting. And NASCAR, because they didn't want to use the nuclear option, I have to reduce Bristol to just one race, because Bristol is like one of the fan favorite tracks on the calendar. Like, everybody loves Bristol, high banks, short track racing, bumping and banging. Like, Bristol is like the perfect racetrack. It's quintessential NASCAR. And to have Bristol like cut down to one race on the schedule, NASCAR fans will riot for that. So NASCAR, they had to do something to save Bristol. They had to put a layer of dirt over it. Some people like it, some people don't. However, they did this because they didn't want to have to take one race off the calendar from Bristol. So this is just an experiment. I don't know how much of if it's gonna be like a short-term or long-term experiment. We still need to wait and see. However, to the people who are saying that they need to get rid of Bristol, like one race is enough, give Dirt Bristol a chance. Seriously. It's not a big deal. It's just, you can't judge like how good a racetrack is off of just one race. Now, with that being said, however, some of the problems that still persisted with Spring Bristol were still there. Most notably, the rain, and of course, this once again opens up the schedule. This opens up like questions surrounding the schedule. What are we going to do moving forward with the Spring Bristol race? Move it to the month of May or June in order to have like a warmer race and less chance of rain. Maybe put a dome over Bristol. They've even explored that possibility. And of course, I am not a fan of putting like a dome over racetracks because of how expensive it is. But when I think about it, if there is one racetrack that actually fits the bill for like putting a dome over it, like a indoors football stadium, it has to be Bristol. As a matter of fact, Bristol has been used as a football stadium in the past for like the Battle of Bristol, I believe, between Virginia Tech and Tennessee. I don't know. I don't really watch college football, so I may have those schools, the names of those two schools wrong. But still, like Bristol is the perfect racetrack to put a dome over. If you're gonna put a dome over any racetrack, I would choose Bristol. If it means that we're not going to have to worry about the rain anymore, I say go for it. I say definitely go for it. Of course, it's gonna be expensive. It's gonna be like a huge investment. And I don't know if the construction of a dome is going to be able to be completed in time. Maybe they're going to have to like take Bristol off the schedule temporarily, and I'm not sure NASCAR fans will love that. But still, the fact that it's being considered and the fact that I'm actually considering the idea, as outlandish as it may be, it shows how much of a problem rain is, or the weather is, for Bristol. Hell, it even snowed 15 years ago in 2006. It snowed at freaking Bristol. So yeah, that's just how much the weather is a problem for Bristol. Whether it's on pavement or on dirt, rain is always going to be a factor. So if NASCAR wants to keep Dirt Bristol around and they want to have like a better fan reception overall, because the fan reception for this race, it was pretty mixed, I'm not gonna lie. They have to do something with the scheduling of this race so that the rain does not affect, does not throw a monkey wrench in NASCAR's logistics of the race. So what about the race itself? Overall, the race was pretty decent. The racing product was pretty decent, outside of course of the tires, which I don't think they were up to spec, because those tires, after a little bit of contact, those tires just blew apart immediately. But then again, that's just how dirt tires are. We have seen the trucks at Eldora, when they come into contact, when they just bump and bang, they're When they get a tire rub, of course they're gonna blow a tire easier because the surface is dirt surface, it's freaking rocked. But of course, still the tires were not as durable as we would have wanted them to be. Tire wear was definitely a big factor in this race. As for the truck race, the big storyline, because there wasn't really a storyline, any big storylines that I paid attention to. Like the only big storyline I saw in the truck race was like the fight between Matt Crafton and Nemechek. Not really a fight, but also like Matt Crafton going to John Hunter Nemechek, took him out. John Hunter Nemechek wasn't happy. That was about it. Martin Truex Jr. got his first Truck Series win, first career Truck Series win. So, of course, he joins the club of drivers to have won in all 3 NASCAR National Series. And that's about it for the truck race. For the Cup race, was much more entertaining. Immediately as the race started, Martin Truex Jr., which I don't know, I don't know how much experience on dirt he has, but he was the car to beat, at least for like the first half of the race. He looked like the car to beat until Daniel Suarez passed him. And watching Suarez lead the race and him coming home in 4th, and watching like mostly everybody cheer for him after so many people were like hating on him that he's a bust, he should go, he doesn't deserve the 41 or the 19 or stuff like that. After watching everybody like go from that to cheering for Suarez, like as a Suarez fan, that made me that warmed my heart so much. Like watching people like cheer for Suarez, and Suarez doing good. He actually came home in the top 5. And of course, him passing Truex, the same guy that replaced him in the number 19, that of course was also great to watch. And of course, other guys like Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. Larson, he started from the pole, but he was going to start from the pole. But he dropped to the rear because of some engine change, I believe. He charged his way all the way up to the top 5 early in stage 1, and then he and Christopher Bell got into it. Like the 2 best cars, or like what people had as the 2 best cars, because people were seeing Larson and Christopher Bell as like the 1A, 1B on Bristol dirt. Like the favorite, like the guy to beat was gonna be one of those 2 guys. They crashed early on in the race. Bell was taken out. Larson finished the race, but he was several laps down. And he wasn't a factor, of course. So that was pretty disappointing. And of course, after the single file restart started, eventually Logano took the lead away from Suarez. Hamlin, of course, was there. Hamlin, the final restart, because this race went into overtime, I believe. I don't know if the race went... I think the race went into overtime. But Hamlin... but besides the point, I know the race ended on the late restart. Hamlin and Logano ended up battling like for the lead. Oh, Hamlin tried to make a move on Logano, but he went to the outside. I don't know if that was on purpose that he did that, or if he blew the corner. I don't know what, but he just left all the room in the world for Logano to operate, and he just pulled away and won the race. And that, of course, is nice, because that makes it now, 7 winners in 7 different races. This 2021 season is so insane, but that's just how it is. When Fox marketed NASCAR as their best season everything, they weren't lying. Like 7 winners in 7 different races, and so much insanity. So many drivers are still winless. But yeah, season's off to a wild start. As for the other finishers, Stenhouse finished 2nd, another like dirt track ace. So at least that was good to see. Outside of Larson and Bell, Stenhouse is also pretty underrated at dirt tracks. So overall, it was a pretty nice it was a pretty nice weekend, for not saying that it was awesome, because it really wasn't. There were a lot of like growing pains for NASCAR, and there were a lot of growing pains for NASCAR, a lot of learning experiences for NASCAR. Overall, I'll say this race, more than an experience, it was a lesson for all of us, and for, excuse me, for NASCAR especially, to plan better for next year. And now that they have learned from their mistakes, I expect the next edition of the Bristol Dirt Race to be much better, because the hype is still there. If the Bristol Dirt Race is returning for next year before the calendar is even announced, NASCAR is actually doing something right. So, yeah,